OWS Week has been coast to coast to cover the Iraq War, Veterans Anti-Afghanistan War rallies in Oakland, California, the police raid on the Occupy DC media tent, and the ensuing arrests in McPherson Square, and remembrance rallies on Brooklyn Bridge, marking 6 months since the brutal NYPD attack against 99er protesters on the landmark New York Bridge. And then some up our sleeves with our weekly interview, Abracadabra.
I love and fully support the Occupy movement. I view the Occupy movement as the American Cultural Revolution, Part 2. Part 1 came in the 1960s and continued through the 1970s. And that part of the American Cultural Revolution got us out of an unjust war and gave us the environmental protection that became the envy of the civilized world. It gave us civil rights legislation that was the model for so many countries to follow. And then we gave up on the whole ideal for a few dollars more in 1980 when we decided we preferred economic growth, city living, and all that goes with that to decent living on behalf of all human beings on the planet. So I fully support the Occupy movement today, and I view it as the second phase of the American Cultural Revolution. Now, I don't know where it's going, and I don't think anybody knows where it's going, and that's one of the things that's so exciting about it. We didn't know where the movement was going the first time around either. In the 1960s, when people were literally giving their lives to get us out of the Vietnam War, when people were literally giving their lives to support, to further the environmental legislation for which we became renowned as a country. We don't know where this is going, and that's one of the things that's so exciting about it for me. I look forward to where it goes next, and I look forward to supporting it as it continues its path.
What so-called Occupy Wall Street is a misnomer, a generic. No street, especially in an American financial district rich in tradition, can be occupied. The law terms it trespassing in this democracy, bearing witness to a dramatic illustration of how few feel empowered to peacefully participate with the lapse of their own government. People should be open to understand that they are the same everywhere. The American 99% say lost family homes and jobs lost because of offshore outsourcing are not acceptable. Not even for the sake of American corporations, let alone for the sake of international corporations operating without any scruples toward their real engine of profit, workers. This week, America was tensely quiet, with most activists highly focused on next weekend. But here are some videos illustrating what quiet has come to mean ever since the American Spring and the resurgence of the 99ers.
Oppression have no currency here. Their systems of oppression basically are just this. They can steal our things, but they can't steal our ideas. I'm sorry, I know it's a little cliche, but they cannot steal the passion and the fire that's in our hearts asking for a better world.
We'll never be indicted. The rich, united. We'll never be indicted. The rich, united. We'll never be indicted.
This is a call to action for toys around the world. Put aside your brand, your color, your imposed gender. Rise up against the forces of corporate domination.
You can put your camera on me all you'd like. I'm telling you, I represent Tishman Speyer Properties, and you're not allowed to have this.
This is private property. It's not a big deal. Just go do it somewhere else. This is not New York City. This is Rockefeller Center. This is privately owned.
Authorities get fired.
She looks like it. Let democracy feel
Well, in 1978, it was that so-called great humanitarian president, Jimmy Carter, who signed off and gave license for the U.S. to covertly give weapons to rebels in Afghanistan.
These all are spontaneous in action, though some may be disconnected from the Occupy Wall Street agenda. It matters not whether in the East Coast this week, nor the West. Polls prove Americans, the people, are in favor of progress and peace as essential as human rights and human decency. And yet, governments rarely take popular will into account.
I'd like to tell you a little bit of my story. I had the brass ring, and I let go. I had reached the pinnacle of the educational world. I was a tenured full professor by the age of 40. I walked away from that life, which I loved, an act that made most people think I'd lost my mind. I'm not going to rule that out, but I do want to tell you a little bit about my side of the story. After trying to change the morally bankrupt system in which we are immersed, I realized the system was changing me, and not for the better. So I let go when I realized the first step I can take toward destroying this irredeemably corrupt system is to leave it. The next step is to tear it down. I invite you to join me, first in letting go, and then in destroying the system. The beginning of my story is an important part, so I'll start much earlier than you'll appreciate, with my birth in fact, though I won't get into the bloody details. Born into captivity and assimilated into the normalcy bias of a historically abnormal period in world history, for many years I did all the things this culture expected from me. For example, I began my career in the expected manner. I was a classroom conservative. I received numerous accolades and awards for teaching, advising, and scholarship. Early on I realized students don't care what you know until they know you care about them. And I did, in ways that made my colleagues question whose side I was on, even as I was pointing out that in educating ourselves and others, we're all on the same side. The sage on the stage is dead. Even earnest, caring teaching doesn't necessarily lead to learning. In addition to the sage on the stage model being dead, what's also dead is the model of student as customer. So I switched my approach in the classroom to one based on a core of discovery in which every participant is expected to contribute to the learning of every other participant. We practiced anarchism in our own classroom-centered way, an approach that I suggest the Occupy movement embrace more fully. By practicing anarchism, we took responsibility for ourselves and for our neighbors. This radical approach to teaching and to helping each other learn puts it all on the line. Everything I know, everything I am, is exposed during every meeting of every class, or in every General Assembly. How can we evaluate our knowledge, our wisdom, and our own personal growth without exposing our own assumptions at every turn? This, of course, requires us to let go of our hubris and replace it with humility, to let go of our egos and instead seek compassion and perhaps even empathy. We're all on the same side. We are the ones we've been waiting for, but we must let go of a system that is making us crazy, making us sick, and killing us. And then we must terminate that system. During my entire life, success has been defined incorrectly by the amount of money a person has, rather than the amount of compassion. Similarly, the entire system has been defined in terms that make no sense, because the system rewards money over happiness and death over life. As John Ralston Saul pointed out in his 1992 book, Voltaire's Bastards, never has failure been so ardently defended as success. Fortunately, we're headed to a world where money doesn't matter. Without money, we'll all be rich, at least in the life-affirming ways that really matter. We spent the first couple million years of the human experience immersed in a gift economy, and it seems we'll be there again in the not-too-distant future. I long for the day we see more free-flowing rivers every year, as well as more clean air, more wild places, fewer species driven to extinction, and less soil washed into the world's oceans, each and every year. the Occupy movement can help us get there.
Occupy Wall Street is big on anniversaries. Its first encampment action was held on September 17, 2011, to mark 9 months since Mohamed Bouazizi set himself on fire in Tunisia. Much has happened in the United States and across the globe since that young man's desperate sacrifice. And OWS continues to commemorate important events as it springs into action. It has been said that OWS maps injustice with celebration. A peaceful, joyous gathering on its 6-month anniversary, March 17, was met by a brutal police riot. Possibly the most extreme encounter yet, with the intimidation meant to maintain order in an unequal and unjust society. But the 99%ers did not react with violence and anger. They spent the next 2 weeks organizing and acting with renewed creativity, confronting injustice with carnival. The same spirit was evident when over 1,000 protesters took the Brooklyn Bridge. The original plan was to march across the pedestrian walkway. One group broke away, locked arms, and blocked traffic on the bridge. The NYPD led hundreds of marchers into a trap, threw orange nets, effectively kettled and arrested more than 700 peaceful protesters as the whole world watched. That event was commemorated on Sunday, April 1st. Hundreds of marchers from all generations and walks of life once again peacefully crossed the Brooklyn Bridge and held a general assembly in a public space on the other side, accompanied by massive police presence, including circling helicopters, the waste of taxpayers' money by the 1% clearly illustrated.
Healthcare for the 99%, a working group of Occupy Wall Street, and we are excited to commemorate the 6-month anniversary of the Brooklyn Bridge March when 700 people were arrested.
It feels good to be here. I was hoping we'd see a lot more people come out today to support this, and perhaps there are a lot more coming. I feel like we're at a very critical point in this nation's history and in the history of our society, and we need to come out and we need to fight back. We need to raise our voices. One statement by Howard Zinn that gives a lot of inspiration to me is, Howard said, the problem in this country is not civil disobedience. The problem in this country is civil obedience. And we live at a time where too much control has been ceded to interests who are small and who are wealthy. For example, the other day, the New York Times ran an article by Stephen Ratner that was commenting on the national recovery. And what this article was articulating was that a lot of the money that has been identified with a recovery isn't going to the people who need it, it's going to the people who have just a small amount of money. So what's happening is the dialogue and the discourse around recovery doesn't really refer to the mass of the people, it just refers to a small segment of the population. And I feel like actions like these help articulate the indignation that people feel about the economic injustice, economic disparity, about the racism, and about the chronic and perpetual state of war that this country finds itself in that doesn't benefit us at all. So we're here, I'm here to articulate my indignation with that and to say that I believe that we can do better and that I want to do better.
Going across it, it was my first, I had been in town about a week right here, camping out here, and I didn't even know I was on Brooklyn Bridge till I was on it. Someone said, hey, this is Brooklyn Bridge. So I'm not happily marching along, and they blocked it, corralled us in with kettling nets. And
how'd you end up on the lower level?
Well, I was on the walkway. I walked up about probably 20 or 30 feet and saw the police coercing everyone onto the roadway. I actually ran back and joined, figuring I was in the wrong spot, because I didn't even know it was a walkway. I don't know the area at that point. I don't know this area at all, except now I do.
So you just came down from Boston?
So I actually ran down and went with the crowd.
Okay. So how do you feel about now that you know the city better and you've been in New York for 6 months? And
I feel the situation is even worse with the police right now at this point. It's even taken the focus pretty much away from the crooks on Wall Street bribing the politicians.
Yeah.
You know, right now it's, you know, how they, you know, put up the corral a couple weeks ago here, arrested all people, New Year's Eve. It's kind of focusing on that. It's distracting, I think. You know, they're totally illegal what they're doing against the Constitution. Last week's march, at least 4 occasions they were grabbing and arresting people. I don't know if you were on that or not. But it's, you know, it's just too bad. They do not want this to succeed. They don't want the general public to know about it. You know, all winter it's kind of gone. You know, mainstream media's been saying.
Citizens assembled peacefully under constitutional guarantees and community and solidarity, constantly met with martial oppression, begs the question. What if the 1% sat down at the table and discussed solutions?
Like me, everybody in the industrialized world was born into captivity. A few people, including many in the Occupy movement, seem to be acknowledging the bars imprisoning them. The unseen bars of our prisons are keeping us from becoming fully human, from fully expressing our humanity. As Goethe said some 2 centuries ago, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. It's time for a jailbreak. Better yet, it's time to heed the words of Joan Baez and raise the prisons to the ground, even the invisible ones. During the final years of my university career, my teaching was inclusive and it led to real learning. It led to empathy, which I think is the most important thing we can learn. I'd like to think we were, collectively and individually, living this line from Eugene Debs, 5-time candidate for President of the United States on behalf of the Socialist Party. While there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. While there is a soul in prison, I am not free. Debs knew that rights are not given, they are fought for. Debs knew people must be willing to die to secure their rights and the rights of others. And people who were heavily involved in the first stage of the American Revolution recognized that as well, and they're willing to put their lives on the line for things that really matter. I'd like to think that we can finally recognize the rights of non-human species and the ecosystems in which they, and we, are embedded. This natural extension of empathy into the non-human world is not only a moral imperative, it is fundamental to survival of humans on Earth. I believe many in the Occupy movement recognize, as we all must, the costs and consequences of the industrial economy. Obedience at home, oppression abroad, and whole-scale destruction of the living planet on which we depend for our very lives. We're on track to cause our own extinction, probably within a single human generation, because of ongoing climate change. The only legitimate hope to prevent our extinction, and that of the thousands of species we're taking with us into the abyss, is completion of the ongoing decline of the industrial economy. The omnicidal culture we know as industrial civilization is about to reach its overdue end, although not as soon as I'd wish. And we need to push it over. We need to tip it over the edge. Time is not on our side. It's long past time to let go of a system that enslaves us while destroying all life and therefore all that matters. And it's not just merely time to let go, but to terminate this increasingly violent system of which we are a part. As Arundhati Roy wrote in her 2001 book, Power Politics, the trouble is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you've seen it, keeping quiet, saying nothing, becomes as political an act as speaking out. There's no innocence. Either way, you're accountable. I saw it. I recognized my accountability. Even though I thought I was doing exceptional work and doing it well, working within a corrupt system, the fact that I was working within that immoral system was enough to make me leave, to turn away from that system. It got to the point that I could no longer expose the dark underbelly of civilization and live at the apex of empire. By this time I had come to recognize that my generation's legacy, the curse my generation leaves behind, is a world depleted of resources, ruined by empire, and ruled by fascism masquerading as republic. A few years ago, I put my own spin on Arundhati Roy's conclusion. Big energy poisons our water. Big ag controls our seeds, hence our food. Big farm controls through pharmaceuticals the behavior of our children. Wall Street controls the flow of money. Big ag controls the messages we receive every day. The criminally rich get richer through crime. That's how America works. Through it all, we believe we're free.